The Sol system was quiet, as it often was these days. Humanity had reached the stars, but their presence in the galaxy was still modest, a fledgling among ancient civilizations. The United Earth Fleet, a small but proud armada, patrolled the edges of their territory, vigilant but unaccustomed to true danger. Near Pluto, aboard the flagship Eclipse, Lieutenant Maya Reyes monitored the comms array, her fingers dancing over the holographic interface. The hum of the ship's engines was a constant, comforting presence. Until it wasn't. The signal came in faint, almost imperceptible at first. Reyes frowned, adjusting the filters. It wasn't a standard transmission, no known language, no familiar encryption. Just a raw, desperate pulse of data. She isolated the frequency, her heart quickening as the message resolved into something coherent. 3 words, repeated over and over. "We are besieged. Help us." The bridge fell silent as the message played. Captain Arlen Voss, a grizzled veteran with decades of service, leaned forward in his chair. "Origin?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Reyes ran a trace, her fingers flying across the console. "It's coming from outside explored space, sir. A star system approximately 12 light-years beyond the Orion Rift. No records of any known species in that region." Voss exhaled sharply, his eyes narrowing. A distress call from the unknown. Just what we needed. He turned to his first officer, Commander Elena Torres. "Thoughts?" Torres crossed her arms, her expression grim. "We don't even know who's sending this. Could be a trap, or worse, a conflict we're not equipped to handle." Reyes hesitated, then spoke up. "With all due respect, Commander, it doesn't matter who's sending it. They're asking for help. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? What humanity is supposed to stand for?" Voss studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Lieutenant Reyes has a point. We can't ignore this. But we also can't rush him blind. Assemble the senior staff. We need to weigh our options." The meeting that followed was tense. Arguments flew back and forth. Some officers advocated for caution, others for immediate action. Reyes sat quietly, her hands clenched in her lap. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point, a moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. When the debate reached a stalemate, she stood, her voice steady but impassioned. "We've spent decades looking to the stars, wondering if we're alone," she said. "Now we know we're not. Someone out there is in trouble, and they've reached out to us. If we turn our backs on them, what does that say about who we are? We have the chance to show the galaxy that humanity stands for something more than survival, that we stand for hope." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Voss exchanged a glance with Torres, then nodded. "Prepare the fleet. We're answering that call." The United Earth Fleet mobilized with unprecedented speed. The Eclipse was joined by the Dauntless, the Valiant, and a dozen other ships, each a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Engineers worked around the clock, outfitting the vessels with the latest technology, experimental shields, advanced weaponry, and hyperspace drives capable of reaching the distant star system in record time. As the fleet prepared to depart, Reyes stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. They were stepping into the unknown, risking everything for a species they'd never met. But deep down, she knew it was the right thing to do. Humanity had always been at its best when faced with the impossible. The jump to hyperspace was smooth, the stars blurring into streaks of light as the fleet hurtled toward their destination. The journey took days, each hour filled with tension and anticipation. Reyes spent most of her time on the bridge, monitoring the sensors, searching for any sign of what awaited them. When they finally emerged from hyperspace, the sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. The star system was a graveyard. Planets reduced to rubble, debris fields stretching for millions of kilometers, and the faint glow of dying stars. And there, amidst the wreckage, was a small, battered vessel, its hull scorched and pitted, the source of the SOS. The Eclipse moved closer, its sensors scanning the alien ship. Reyes's breath caught as the data came in. The vessel was barely functional, its power systems on the verge of collapse. And inside, life signs. Weak but unmistakable. "Open a channel," Voss ordered. "Let's see who we're dealing with." The screen flickered to life, revealing a figure unlike anything Reyes had ever seen. The alien was tall and slender, with iridescent skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light of their ship. They spoke in a series of melodic tones, which the ship's AI quickly translated. "We are the Klyvarians," the alien said, their voice trembling with exhaustion. "We are under attack by the Vorax, a merciless empire that seeks to enslave or destroy all who stand in their way. We sent the signal as a last hope, never expecting anyone to answer. But you came. You came." Reyes felt a lump form in her throat. The Klyvarians' gratitude was palpable, their relief almost overwhelming. But there was no time to celebrate. The Vorax were still out there, and they would return. The question was, what would humanity do next? The fleet moved cautiously through the shattered star system, sensors scanning for any sign of the Vorax. The Klyvarian ship, barely holding together, was brought aboard the Eclipse for repairs. Their story was one of desperation, a peaceful civilization caught in the crosshairs of an empire that thrived on conquest. The Vorax had swept through their system like a storm, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. The Klyvarians had fought valiantly, but their technology was no match for the invaders. Their only hope had been the faint chance that someone, somewhere, would hear their plea. Lieutenant Reyes spent hours with the Klyvarians, learning what she could about their culture and the threat they faced. The aliens were hesitant at first, their trust hard-won, but Reyes's empathy and determination broke through their barriers. She learned of the Vorax's tactics, their overwhelming numbers, their ruthless efficiency, their willingness to destroy entire worlds rather than let them resist. It was a grim picture, but Reyes refused to be discouraged. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. They would do so again. Captain Voss called a meeting of the fleet's commanders to discuss their next move. The Klyvarians had provided coordinates for their homeworld, Klyvar, which was still under siege. The Vorax had blockaded the planet, cutting off all escape routes and bombarding the surface from orbit. The Klyvarians' last stand was a desperate attempt to buy time for their people, but time was running out. "We can't take on the Vorax head-on," Commander Torres said, her tone grim. "Their fleet is too large, their firepower too great. Even with our advanced tech, we'd be outmatched." "Then we don't fight them head-on," Reyes countered. "We use our strengths, speed, agility, and ingenuity. The Vorax rely on brute force. If we can outthink them, we might stand a chance." Voss nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Reyes is right. We need a plan that plays to our advantages. The Klyvarians know their system better than anyone. If we can use that knowledge, we might be able to turn the tide." The plan that emerged was risky, but it was the best they had. The fleet would split into smaller task forces, each targeting a different part of the Vorax blockade. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy outright. It was to create chaos, to disrupt their formations and buy time for Klyvarians to mount a counterattack. Reyes was assigned to lead one of the task forces, a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified her. She had never commanded in battle before, but she knew this was a chance to prove herself. As the fleet approached Klyvar, the scale of the devastation became clear. The planet was surrounded by Vorax warships, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The surface was scarred by craters and fires, the once vibrant cities reduced to ash. Reyes clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. They couldn't let this stand. The battle began with a coordinated strike on the Vorax's outer perimeter. The human ships, small and fast, darted in and out of range, their weapons targeting the enemy's weaker points. The Vorax responded with overwhelming force, their cannons lighting up the void with deadly precision. But the humans had anticipated this. They used the debris fields and asteroid belts to their advantage, weaving through the chaos and striking from unexpected angles. Reyes' task force targeted a Vorax supply depot, a critical hub for the blockade. The depot was heavily guarded, but Reyes had a plan. She ordered her ships to feign a retreat, drawing the Vorax away from their defenses. Once the enemy was out of position, she led a swift, precise strike on the depot, crippling its operations and cutting off the Vorax's supply lines. The maneuver was risky, but it worked. The Vorax were thrown into disarray, their formations breaking apart as they scrambled to respond. The Klyvarians, emboldened by the humans' actions, launched their own counterattack. Their ships, though outmatched, fought with ferocity born of desperation. Together, the two fleets began to push the Vorax back, inch by hard-fought inch. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, there was hope. As the fighting raged on, Reyes found herself face-to-face with a Vorax warship. The enemy vessel was massive, its hull bristling with weapons, but Reyes refused to back down. She ordered her crew to target the ship's engines, aiming to disable it without destroying it. The Vorax had shown no mercy to the Klyvarians, but Reyes believed in a different way, a way that didn't involve becoming the very thing they were fighting against. The maneuver was a success. The Vorax warship was crippled, its engine sputtering as it drifted helplessly. Reyes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before turning her attention back to the battle. There was still much to do, but they had taken the first step. Humanity had answered the call, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. The Vorax, caught off guard by the humans' tactics, began to retreat. Their once impenetrable blockade was crumbling, their ships falling back in disarray. The Klyvarians cheered, their voices filled with gratitude and relief. But Reyes knew this was only the beginning. The Vorax would return, stronger and more determined than ever, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The Vorax retreat was not a surrender. It was a regrouping, a temporary withdrawal to reassess and retaliate. The humans and Klyvarians knew this. The brief respite was spent fortifying defenses, repairing ships, and preparing for the inevitable counterattack. The Klyvarians, though battered and weary, worked alongside their human allies with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, they had hope, and they were determined to fight for it. Lieutenant Reyes found herself at the center of the effort. Her quick thinking and adaptability had earned her the respect of both her crew and the Klyvarians. She spent hours in the war room, poring over tactical maps and strategizing with Captain Voss and the Klyvarian commanders. The Vorax were predictable in their brutality, but their sheer numbers and firepower made them a formidable foe. The key, Reyes argued, was to exploit their predictability while introducing elements of chaos they couldn't anticipate. The Vorax returned sooner than expected. Their fleet was larger this time, a dark swarm of warships descending on Klyvar with relentless precision. The humans and Klyvarians were ready, but the odds were still heavily against them. The battle began with a barrage of Vorax artillery, their energy cannons lighting up the void as they targeted the planet's remaining defenses. The human and Klyvarian ships moved quickly, their smaller, more agile frames darting through the chaos to strike at the enemy's flanks. Reyes led her task force in a daring maneuver, targeting the Vorax command ship. If they could take out the enemy's leadership, they might be able to disrupt their coordination. The Vorax command ship was heavily guarded, its defenses nearly impenetrable, but Reyes had a plan. She ordered her ships to launch a series of decoy drones, drawing the Vorax's attention away from their true target. As the enemy focused on the drones, Reyes's task force slipped through their defenses, launching a precision strike on the command ship's weak points. The attack was a success. The Vorax command ship was crippled, its systems failing as it drifted helplessly. The enemy fleet, now leaderless, began to falter. Their formations broke apart, their attacks growing disorganized and erratic. The humans and Klyvarians seized the opportunity, pressing their advantage with relentless determination. The tide of the battle began to turn, but the Vorax were not so easily defeated. Even without their command ship, they fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Their ships, though disorganized, were still a formidable force. The humans and Klyvarians suffered heavy losses, their ships falling one by one to the enemy's relentless assault. Reyes watched in horror as the Valiant, one of the fleet's most advanced vessels, was torn apart by Vorax artillery. The loss was devastating, but it only strengthened her resolve. As the battle raged on, Reyes noticed something unusual. The Vorax ships, though still numerous, were beginning to pull back. At first, she thought it was another tactical retreat, but then she saw it, a massive energy signature emerging from the edge of the system. It was a Vorax superweapon, a planet killer capable of reducing Klyvar to ash in a single strike. The Vorax, realizing they couldn't win through conventional means, had decided to destroy the planet entirely. Reyes's heart raced as she realized what was at stake. If the superweapon fired, it wouldn't just mean the end of Klyvar. It would mean the end of everything they had fought for. She immediately contacted Captain Voss, her voice urgent. "Sir, we need to take out that superweapon. If it fires, it's over." Voss agreed, but the task seemed impossible. The superweapon was heavily guarded, its defenses even more formidable than the command ships. Reyes knew they didn't have the firepower to take it down through brute force. They would need to be smarter, more cunning. She proposed a plan, a risky, all-or-nothing gambit that would require perfect timing and flawless execution. The plan involved using the eclipse as a diversion. The flagship would draw the Vorax's attention, allowing a small strike team to infiltrate the superweapon and disable it from within. Reyes volunteered to lead the strike team, knowing full well the risks involved. Voss hesitated, but ultimately agreed. "Just make it back alive, Lieutenant," he said, his voice heavy with concern. The eclipse moved into position, its weapons firing on the Vorax fleet with relentless precision. The enemy, predictably, focused their attention on the flagship, their ships converging on it in a desperate attempt to take it down. Meanwhile, Reyes and her team slipped through the chaos in a small, stealth-equipped shuttle, their hearts pounding as they approached the superweapon. The infiltration was tense. The superweapon's defenses were formidable, but Reyes's team moved with precision and determination. They fought their way through the enemy's forces, their every move calculated and deliberate. Finally, they reached the superweapon's core, a massive, pulsating energy reactor that powered the deadly weapon. Reyes didn't hesitate. She planted the charges, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The team retreated just as the charges detonated, the superweapon's core erupting in a blinding explosion. The shock wave rippled through the Vorax fleet, their ships thrown into disarray as the superweapon was reduced to debris. The humans and Klyvarians cheered, their voices filled with relief and triumph. The Vorax, now leaderless and without their ultimate weapon, began to retreat in earnest. Reyes and her team returned to the eclipse, their mission success. But the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, and the battle had taken its toll on both the humans and the Klyvarians. As the fleet regrouped, Reyes looked out at the stars, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The Vorax would return, of that she had no doubt. But for now, they had won. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. The aftermath of the battle was a somber affair. The humans and Klyvarians had won, but the cost had been staggering. Ships lay in ruins, their crews lost to the void. The surface of Klyvar, though spared from total destruction, bore the scars of war. Cities reduced to rubble, landscapes scorched by Vorax bombardment. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was hope. The Vorax had been driven back, their superweapon destroyed, and their fleet in disarray. For the first time in years, the Klyvarians dared to believe in a future free from fear. Lieutenant Reyes stood on the observation deck of the eclipse, her eyes fixed on the planet below. The Klyvarians had invited the human fleet to land, to see the world they had fought so hard to protect. Reyes felt a mix of emotions, pride in what they had accomplished, grief for those they had lost, and a quiet determination to ensure their sacrifices were not in vain. She was joined by Captain Voss, who placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good, Reyes," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We all did." The Klyvarians welcomed their human allies with open arms. The planet's surviving leaders organized a ceremony to honor the fallen and celebrate the victory. Reyes found herself standing before a crowd of Klyvarians, their glowing eyes filled with gratitude. She spoke not as a soldier, but as a representative of humanity. "We came because you asked for help," she said, her voice steady. "But we stayed because we believe in what you're fighting for. Freedom, hope, a future where no one has to live in fear. We're honored to stand with you, and we'll continue to stand with you, no matter what comes next." Her words resonated deeply with the Klyvarians. For years, they had been isolated, their pleas for help ignored by the rest of the galaxy. Humanity's willingness to answer their call, to risk everything for a people they had never met, was a revelation. It sparked something in the Klyvarians, a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that they were not alone in the fight against the Vorax. In the days that followed, The humans and Klyvarians worked together to rebuild. Engineers from both species collaborated to repair damaged infrastructure, while medical teams tended to the wounded. The Klyvarians shared their knowledge of the galaxy, providing the humans with valuable intelligence on the Vorax and their operations. In return, the humans offered their advanced technology, helping the Klyvarians bolster their defenses and prepare for the next attack. Reyes found herself at the center of these efforts. Her ability to bridge the gap between the two species made her an invaluable asset. She spent hours in meetings with Klyvarian leaders, helping to coordinate their joint efforts. She also took the time to learn about Klyvarian culture, their history, and their struggles. The more she learned, the more determined she became to help them secure a better future. The Vorax, though temporarily defeated, were not gone. Scouts reported sightings of their ships on the edge of the system, gathering their forces for another assault. The humans and Klyvarians knew they couldn't afford a rest. They needed a plan, a way to not just defend Klyvar, but to strike back at the Vorax and end the threat once and for all. Reyes proposed an ambitious strategy. Instead of waiting for the Vorax to attack, they would take the fight to them. The Klyvarians knew the location of several Vorax strongholds, including a key supply depot that fueled their war machine. If they could destroy the depot, they could cripple the Vorax's ability to wage war. It was a risky plan, but it was their best chance at securing a lasting victory. The fleet prepared for the mission with a sense of urgency. The Eclipse and its sister ships were repaired and refitted, their crews bolstered by Klyvarian volunteers. Reyes was given command of a strike team, tasked with infiltrating the Vorax depot and planting explosives at its core. She accepted the responsibility without hesitation, knowing that the success of the mission depended on her. The journey to the Vorax depot was tense. The fleet moved through hyperspace, their sensors on high alert for any sign of the enemy. When they arrived, they found the depot heavily guarded, its defenses even more formidable than expected. The humans and Klyvarians launched a coordinated assault, their ships engaging the Vorax in a fierce battle. Reyes and her team slipped through the chaos, their shuttle cloaked to avoid detection. The infiltration was a harrowing experience. The depot was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one heavily patrolled by Vorax soldiers. Reyes and her team moved with precision, their every step calculated to avoid detection. They fought their way through the enemy's forces, their determination unwavering. Finally, they reached the depot's core, a massive reactor that powered the entire facility. Reyes planted the charges, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The team retreated just as the explosives detonated, the reactor erupting in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippled through the depot, its defenses collapsing as the structure was consumed by fire. The Vorax fleet, now without their supply lines, began to retreat in disarray. The humans and Klyvarians returned to Klyvar's heroes. The victory was a turning point, not just in the war against the Vorax, but in the relationship between the two species. The Klyvarians, inspired by humanity's courage and compassion, pledged to stand with them as equals. Together, they would build a future free from fear, a future where the galaxy could thrive in peace. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, Reyes stood on the observation deck once more, her eyes fixed on the stars. She thought of all they had accomplished, all they had lost, and all they had gained. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had been worth it. Humanity had answered the call, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could prevail. And as the Eclipse entered hyperspace, Reyes knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless others who needed help. Humanity would answer their calls too, not because they had to, but because it was who they were. And in doing so, they would continue to inspire hope, not just for themselves, but for all who looked to the stars.